Good morning. It's actually not morning right now as I'm recording. It's Sunday night. That sun that you see in the background, it's setting in the west. It's not rising in the east. And I'm recording here this evening on purpose because you're going to be watching this in the morning. And the sun, whether it's rising or setting, you can't really tell. And so it's an odd transition, isn't it? And I'm wanting to do this on purpose because today I want to talk to you about transition. I want to talk to you about the spirituality of transition. And I think that right now, as we continue to talk about the economy and some of the stories that I'm hearing about people that are now afraid of being left behind, people who are frustrated that it's not moving fast enough, and everything in between, now's the time. I'm inspired by two conversations that I had this past week. One was with a Presbyterian minister in Pakistan who found me on Facebook, and we've had a couple of conversations already, and we had a very long one this week for about an hour. He, myself, and his wife. In Pakistan, they serve 6 congregations and a school, and they have 3 children. And every day they get up and they work. Every day, every day, every day. Every day they try to encourage people who would otherwise have no reason to find encouragement in the world through their faith, to sustain life, to transition from one day to the next, even by times, to help children in a school who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford education transition from one life to the next. And I'm also reminded about this transition, or the place of transition and faith, in another conversation I had with a friend of mine who is taking time during COVID to figure out how he's going to keep his business afloat, because he's started one just pre-COVID, and now here he is, and it's going in fits and starts, and wife, 3 kids, and in order to stay centered, he's really taking time to think about his friendships, which he's going to keep, which he's going to change, how he's going to modify them, because COVID is really testing him at his deepest level. And I'm inspired by both these families. There's lots of passages in the Bible and in the Christian faith about transitions. There's lots of literature about transitions. The question, of course, is what to do about it. How does it work, and where do you go, and what does it mean? I think that we're in danger sometimes of making things too black and white. We can see God, as I'm going to use that name God, as something that is somewhat distant, maybe has some intervention, right? Either we would talk about God's will or natural law, and we can look at all the scientific or philosophical or theological reasons that COVID is happening. And that's like sort of really headspace kind of stuff. Then there's a lot of the inner workings of faith that you and I have been talking about on these weekly videos about, how our thoughts and our emotions work together, and how to regulate the spikes and be centered. But now I want to talk to you a little bit about from the A to B, as I think even about myself and where I have been over the last several years, and in this transition place, and where is God leading me, and where am I going in my career, and so I sit very much in the middle like everybody else does. And I think it's this. I think that the message tonight or in the morning is this. There is nobody who can really tell us where we're going to be come end of June, end of July, end of August, sometime into September. We know that our governments and our scientists are literally trying to keep up with things as best as they possibly can. And so what do you do in the meantime? Do you just tread water? How do you deal with your fears or your stresses or your frustrations? This is not just a time of testing in the sense of, do I have what it takes to make it? This is a time of testing in the sense of, am I really in touch with what my core values are? Or, was the world that I was living in or you were living in pushing me so fast that I really didn't take time to think about what was most important, not to me in a personal sense, but most important in terms of where my talents and my gifts should be put to use? COVID-19 is not an opportunity to, find those things. It's a situation that requires us to find those things if we're going to transition well. I'm going to say that again. COVID-19 is not an opportunity to find those things. It's a situation that requires us to find those things, to pass through well. No different than my pastor friend in Pakistan who has his 6 churches and with he and his wife the school and trying to make a transition from day to day. No different than my friend and his wife and his kids and their business during COVID. Finding out what they're made of is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Deciding what your core values are and how you're going to face up to yourself is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And I would dare say that the more that you have at stake in terms of where you're headed, and the higher the pressures, the more that you and I and everybody else are called to lean into a God that loves us and is there for us. There is nothing in faith that you can go find in your heart that you need to fear. The negative self-talk will teach you to fear it, right? The doubt, the self-doubt, the unnecessary stress, that will teach you to doubt it. But if you come to a place where you're not sure if the sun is rising or setting in that transition area, trust in God. Trust in the goodness that will lead you in this transition time and do a triage and do a cleanup. Do it in forgiveness, do it without malice, do it in gratitude, but do it. My friends, have a blessed week. Be blessed, be a blessing, and we'll see you next time. Happy transition this week. Amen.